Welcome back, everybody. We have, just before the break, we have covered step 5, so I just want to do a quick recap, okay, on everything, right? So, step 1, which path? Okay, is it going to be a holy path, psychology, or spiritual? Because at the end of the day, don't reject any of those, okay? What we have to do is we have to set the holiness aside on level 1. We have to get into right-minded thinking. That's what the Holy Spirit is, so you can carry your holiness and use that symbol of the right mind as the Holy Spirit. Okay? We correct the ego's wrong thought with the right thought. That's what right-mindedness is. It's the correction for wrong-mindedness. That's what truth is. Okay? Truth or illusion. Okay? And then what happens is we move into the higher spiritual area. This is where you connect with your true spiritual essence, your higher self. Anything below that line, and you claim to be spiritual, you're not spiritual. Okay? Spirituality is here. It's not something you learn. It's not something you do. It's not something that basically you think. It's something you are. And when you remember your higher self, that's your spirituality. That's what true spirituality is. It's the remembrance of your higher self. Anything up until that point will bring you to that point. You know, if your identity is a spiritual person, okay, can you bring that identity up with you? No. So you can see people, you know, our personal identity has attachments. Okay? That's the separated self. So if you're going to hang on, I'm a spiritual person, or I'm an intellectual, or I'm this, or I'm that. Basically, you're not going to move above this. So set your spirituality aside. Set, basically, the holiness aside, and just concentrate on the correction. That's it. Everything else, just don't reject it, don't judge it as good or bad, don't see it as right or wrong, but just say, right, I'm going to park that and I'm going to get to here. Okay, and I'm sure there's games out there, where there's levels like snakes and ladders. Yeah? Okay, here's the ladder. Where's the snake? Who's the snake?
Everybody.
No, the ego. So, you'll plod up to here, and the next thing you'll have a little temptation. That little snake will come out and will say, Eve, tell Adam to eat the apple. And you will do it. And all of a sudden you go down to here again. Okay? So you can see, you can use any symbols on this that you want. You could do, many, many things with this. Okay?
Michael, but the second you do that, you can realize it and do the correction and move back up again.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and that's good. It's not about getting up here and thinking, oh God, I'm back down here now, I'm a bad person, I made a mistake.
Yeah, you don't need to beat yourself up.
If you're back down here, that's a good thing. Because now you reinterpret that. Instead of now it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because I have found I'm attached to something. Now I have the opportunity to let this go. Once you think like that, you're back up here, and now you've let the attachment go. Simple, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But if you make a move up here, and see that move as a good move, what happens?
You go back down again.
Is it the right move?
Choose again, brother.
See? There's many little traps out there, and this is all to do with your thinking. You see, every thought has its own identity. It has its own energy. It means something. Okay? And if you're basically attaching yourself to that thought without you knowing what that thought means, then you're going where that thought is. Remember, this is the good thoughts, the bad thoughts. Thoughts that are right, thoughts that are wrong. All the justice in here, this is the injustices. Good people in here, bad people in here. All the right moves in here, all the wrong moves in here. So don't fall into these traps when you're doing the course, when you're doing any form of spirituality.
Do you find, Michael, or did you find that as you did this work, And the better you got at it, the better disguises the ego would wear.
Well,
I'm using that metaphor,
yeah.
you know what I mean.
Well,
Yeah, you're going to come to
we're going to just cover that now in 7.
Okay.
All right, because it's a lovely little twist at the end of this at number 7. And I've been working with Diane at this at the moment. Like, you know, I think it's going to be a very successful. So, recap. Which path? And then, which story? Okay. Is it the sin, guilt, and fear? The tiny mad idea? Is it the Garden of Eden story? Is it the prodigal son story? Or is it the true meaning of life that we're here to wake up? Now, this is very important. I did this before. Whatever story you pick, okay? This is what you do at the end of the story. Listen. Simply do this. Be still and lay aside all thoughts of what you are, what God is, all concepts you have learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is either true or false, or good or bad. Of ACIM, hold on to nothing. Do not bring one with you thought from the past has taught you, nor one belief you have ever learned. Forget this world, forget this course, and come with holy empty hands unto your God. So it doesn't matter which story that you want to do this. There's none of them good, there's none of them bad, there's none of them right, there's none of them wrong. But whatever story you're going to use to detach from, you're going to let it go. So you can see it doesn't matter, there's no great importance to one story or the other story. It's basically whatever story that you feel that you need to be there. So if you're attached to guilt, then you know the story that's meant for you. If you're attached to psychology and thinking, you know the story for you. So they're all stories. So then the next step is only about mastering the tools. You ain't going anywhere without and to master a tool means to apply it. To learn a tool means to study it. But to master anything, you become it. You live it. You be it. So you master responsibility, which means responsibility for everybody and everything. You're a master acceptance, same thing. ATF, advanced true forgiveness, complete forgiveness, simple forgiveness, self-empowerment, all need to be mastered. They will become natural to you. These are all the miracles. When Jesus says, I think it's in the 7th miracle principles, all miracles are natural. There's something wrong when the miracle is not happening naturally. And that's what he's really saying is, we are love, and when we're not loving, there's something wrong. The miracle is love. So all of those empowerment tools will become naturally right-minded aspects of yourself that you won't even need to think to use them. There'll just be one thought. That's when you know you're the master. You won't lose your peace over anything. So the next thing then, step 4, is the detachment. And we know what we're detaching. Okay? What are we detaching? For all those who are... Everybody looks at the notes. The persona, the shadow, and the personality. So what we're really doing here is we're sorting out these 2 rooms. Okay? Remember that the process was the undoing, the sorting out, and the relinquishing. So that's step 4. And that's got to do with the separated self. Then another part of the separated self in step 5 was the personal identity. Our bodies, our gender, our family, our nationality. All of these things keep us separate. So we move now to step 6. And you all have the sheets there. And we have done this, and this is a part, I think, of the 2nd class of the separated self. And you all have been aware of the 3 layers of the separated self. these 3 layers consist of this. Okay? You must begin to relinquish all attachments to the external, which means that you do not physically relinquish anything, but you look at, or you begin to look at everything from a different perspective. You'll be looking at it from here. Okay, so you'll automatically be seeing differently, which means you'll automatically be thinking, but give that time. It's not going to happen overnight. That is the point here. Look from a higher perspective, and it will be easy to let this go. But when you're in the middle of it, it's impossible to let it go. Next, you must look at all the ego's coping mechanisms with a new, and replace them with the new empowerment tools. Okay? Especially that of complete forgiveness and self-empowerment. Lastly, the most difficult part of all to do is the ego's defenses. So the way you disarm the ego's defenses is you first recognize them, you correct them, and then you replace them with new coping mechanisms, like complete forgiveness. Very, very powerful tool. There's a number of psychotherapists in Ireland using that with their patients now, Josh, and it's been unbelievably successful. So have a good look at that. So here you can see you have the separated self. Let me just put up the same diagram. So you have the separated self, and then you have basically the 3 layers around it. On the out layer you have attachments, okay? In the middle layer you have the coping mechanisms, and then you have the defenses. Okay? So you work from the outside in. A lot of people do in the course, this is the separated self in the middle here. And this is all the defense, this is the ego thought system that keeps it protected. So a lot of people do in the course will start here with the defenses. And the defenses are very, very strong here because the coping mechanisms reinforce their defense, and all the attachments protected, because we will fight to keep our attachments. Anything you're attached to, you're not going to give it up. Just watch if someone else comes to your attachment and interferes with it. You know, if you like things a certain way, and someone else moves it, or someone else does something with it, just look how you react. And it might be just, you know, putting a dinner set out. It might be putting a cup on a table. You know, just look the way you react when someone doesn't do it the way you want to do it. That's an attachment. And if that's over a cup, you can imagine the attachments that we have to our beliefs, our reputation, all of these things. So the personal identity is a reputation. So in this step now, what you're doing, you've already started working with the separated self, this mind, but now that mind is also protected here. So you must let the separated self dissolve. And the way it's going to dissolve is when all of these fall apart, everything falls apart, and you just wake up. Okay? So when you're doing this work, all this work, you're doing it from here, and all of this here is starting to collapse. Time starts to collapse. The more that you do this work and all those steps, everything here starts to basically fall apart. Which brings us then to the very final step, step 7. When you reach this stage, what is left of your attachments to the ego will have retreated now. If you read the section on grandeur and grandiosity, this is what he's talking about. If the ego feels threatened, it will retreat. It will sit still. That's its protective device. It won't move a muscle, and you will think that you have the job done. And this happens to an awful lot of people. It's very, very common. Once they start doing this work, and they might sit, the ego could sit for a year, a couple of years, and all of a sudden, hell breaks out again. It basically takes away the confidence. And that person kind of thinks now they've done something terrible, they've done something wrong, what did they do, and all of this. So, in this process, what I have looked at and been guided on is that now the conditions for being awake is stillness and quietness, where the mind is basically now not in the train thoughts of good, bad, and right and wrong. They're not even in now what's true and false. They're just in the state of being. Okay? So at this level now, if you're not awake at this point, what you do is you sit still. And what happens? The ego will come to you. Why? Anybody? Why will the ego come?
Because it wants attention?
It needs it. It needs energy. It won't sit for too long. If the more that you're in silence, the more that you're there, and if you're still having attachment, that attachment will come to take you out of that. It's automatic by the ego. Anytime that you feel contented, anytime you're in a nice space, that's a big siren goes off in the ego thought system, and the ego is automatically going to try to pull you out of that experience. So the more now that you be in your center, the more that you are quiet and still, anything the ego has now will come to you. So you sit patiently and you just look, and when you observe it coming, you know, I'm attached to this because maybe I've reacted to it. Now you let that go. And you go back to sitting in silence.
When that happens, the ego can bring you, I don't know how to say it, like tragedy or even good things, but either way, it's just...
It'll bring you depression, it'll bring you anger, it can bring you anything.
But it can also bring you things that we might think of as positive, right? Like
Of course.
joy or things
distract you.
to continue.
It could even come, well done, you've done a great job. You're now enlightened.
Yeah.
You have to basically be as wary for the persona of the ego, which is specialness, and the shadow. Because the ego will use whatever one that it feels that you are still attached to. And it usually is specialness, because specialness is the primary cause of all guilt. You can't have specialness without guilt. So we all seek specialness. It's kind of like the carrot that's dangled in front of us. Lead us not into temptation. You know? We might see a very special person. I want to be with that special person. So the specialness, we go for it. Tempted. Here we go. And all of a sudden then we're into this relationship and it turns into a disaster and we walk away. And what do we walk away with? Guilt. Is that true, Joseph? Every relationship's the same. You can't have specialness without the guilt. And when the relationship's over, all you're left with is the guilt. Is that true? Anybody here disagree with that? So you can see the insanity in all of this. It's the persona that's going to be the tempter. Look at Jesus in the desert. He went out into the desert. This is the step 7 that he's talking about. And let's call it that. Let's call it the desert. Okay? And in the desert, there's nothing. There's not even a horse with no name. It took you 2 seconds. So, what Jesus' journey in there is a symbol for this. When he went into the desert, he was going into the silence. He was going into no identity, non-attachment. Okay, not even food. He was undoing his needs, any expectations, demands that he had. And the ego came to him with 3 temptations of specialness. Each was all designed to teach him, has he still got an ego? You know, one of them was the temptations, if you're the Son of God, you can't basically rule all over. I will give you all of this to rule over. Another one was, you're hungry, so turn that stone into bread. Because the need was there. Have you a need? And then the last one was, throw yourself of that there and raise yourself up. If you're the Son of God, God will save you. So all of these temptations are all relevant at this stage. Okay, specialness will come. Well, when the special just doesn't come with the ego, what's the ego going to come with next? Fear. It'll come with stories about where you're going, you're going to be damned. There's no you, there are no bodies in heaven. You're not going to be special in heaven. All of these things, these are all the stories. These stories are in our heads all the time. And you're going to encounter these three temptations. I did. Just before I woke up, I had three temptations. I had three choices to make where my motivation could have been all about me or could have been about other people. And twice I chose to put other people in front of myself. But the third temptation happened basically about 30 seconds just before my experience. And it was that I knew something was going to happen. And I started to search about to see what's going to happen that day. That was my birthday, that was it. And I remember, this was the last thing I expected. And what happened was there was a new lottery starting in Ireland on that day, the night of my birthday. And this was the same night 10 years previously where I had the first 5 numbers out. Okay, and it was 1.5 million. And I had the 6th number, my 6th number was 20 and 21 came out. I couldn't get closer. So I kind of figured, oh, I'm going to win the lottery. So I went and bought my tickets and everything, and I was convinced I was going to win the lottery. And I was sitting at the computer, and I had my headphones on, and my son was there and everything, and I started to think, do I really want to win this money? My son was watching the TV, and there were about a couple of minutes to go, and I was very tempted to tell him to turn it over to see the numbers. And I started to think, well, I said, Jesus, I've been in hell for the last 10 years. I had all the money, and I had cars, basically you name it and everything, and I went, Jesus, I couldn't go through that again. Do you know, I'd have to spend all that money. What am I going to spend it on, like, do you know? More drink, drugs, you name it. And I went, no. And I threw the lottery ticket in the fire, and I never turned off over the TV. And then the next instant, I woke up. I had my first spiritual awakening. So you can see in life we're making choices. And to me, that was the final choice that I had to make. That I wanted nothing in this world anymore. There was nothing in this world that basically could cover up the fact that it was a crock of shit. Everything in it disgusted me to the extent. And I didn't know what else there was. I wasn't doing it thinking, well, I'm going to go to heaven because I did want to go to heaven because I wanted to see God. And I wanted to tell God what I thought of God. You know, I basically wanted to meet him face to face and then tell him to fuck off. And I says, right, you've done everything you possibly could to me, right? And nothing else you can do to me. So, you. And that's what was in my heart at that, well, it was in my head with the pain and everything, like, because a part of me blamed God for it. So, in all of this, you know, you're going to come to this stage, and this stage is happening in every minute. You're being tempted in every minute. You know, 1,000 times a day you're being tempted with thoughts. Don't get confused with physicality and psychology. It's the thoughts parts that we're attached to. That is where we have to be the observer now. What am I attached to? And it's very simple. Anything you're attached to will piss you off. It will annoy you. It will irritate you. It will depress you. It will give you pain. So you don't have to be an intellectual psychologist to understand that. Anything that hurts you, look at it and become one with it and detach from it. Okay, reinterpret it. That's the only way you can let anything go is through reinterpretation. When people are confused of the release stuff or let stuff go or what forgiveness is, it's reinterpretation, because forgiveness is the reinterpretation of the denial of the thoughts in our mind. That's all forgiveness is. And that reinterpretation detaches that. Okay? So is there any questions on this? Are you all happy? And at the very bottom I said, let me read. What did it read? I'll just read this little section at the end I liked it. It says, if you're not awake at this point, it will not be too long before you are. The moment you wake up on level 3, God will wake up within you. You are on your way home. See you there.